All right, we are live finally after a little technical trouble. Thank you for your patience. Hope you were able to hang in there. I'm Drew Boyd. This is Office Hours on LinkedIn Learning. And as you know, I'm an author for LinkedIn Learning, and I'm also very pleased to have a fellow author and a longtime friend and colleague of mine in the healthcare space, Mr. Doug Ladd. And I was excited to have Doug because I can't think of anybody better to talk about our topic today, which is careers in the healthcare space. So let's get Doug in here. There he is. Doug, reboot here.
Hi,
um,
Drew.
Hi, Doug. So let's get into this issue of the healthcare space and why it's such an interesting career choice and such an exciting career choice. What I'd like to do today is just let people understand what the healthcare landscape looks like in terms of jobs and marketing and sales. And then give some people some strategies about, how do you get into it? What do you do to make yourself more competitive in this industry? It's a very exciting industry, as you well know. In fact, why don't you just start by telling people a little bit about your career?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for having me on, Drew. So, my career, I have spent my entire career in the healthcare industry. I initially in college thought that I might want to be a doctor, and that lasted until I hit organic chemistry and physics in the same year, and then that plan went out the window. So, I retooled, looked at the industry, and realized that there is a part of the healthcare industry that is all about the marketing side of bringing products, services to the patient and to the clinicians. And so I started my career actually in pharmaceutical sales. And I did that specifically because some of the things that I heard from my professors when I was in university was around, beginning in sales helps you understand more about the customer and how to translate those needs into marketing communications. And so I started in pharmaceutical sales, moved into sales training, moved into sales management, um, and then actually started to run into some challenges. And the challenge was a structural one. This was during the time when HMOs were really coming into being in the mid 1990s. And nobody in my company could explain to me how these HMOs thought. And I was hearing all these acronyms and terms tossed around, PPMs, and uh, just different metrics that they were using than what we were using in our business. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to be successful in this career, I need to understand how my customers make money. I need to understand the cash flow side of the business. So I left the pharmaceutical industry, went into the HMO business to understand how insurers think, how do contracts work between hospitals and insurers or
Right.
clinician groups and insurers. Ultimately, then I transitioned into the medical device industry. And in the medical device industry, I started in upstream marketing, so serving as the marketing person, sitting with a group of engineers, uh, providing inputs that would then turn into a product. Then I went into downstream marketing where I was managing brands, ultimately managing those brands on a global basis, and then progressed up to the point where I was either VP of sales and marketing or chief marketing officer in medical device companies. Working on a global basis. And so I've been blessed to have the opportunity to work all around the globe and see healthcare marketplaces from a variety of different viewpoints. Um, so to tie that into where you were going with your question, Drew, of so what is this industry? Well, this industry is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
It makes up about 20% of the U.S. gross domestic product. So roughly
Incredible.
$1 out of $5 in the U.S. economy is tied to healthcare.
Yeah.
So then, by logical extension, if you look at that, that would say that about 1 out of 5 jobs in the
Yeah.
US economy are tied to healthcare. And so that is to me one of the most interesting pieces is that many people actually their jobs touch the healthcare industry. They might not think of it that way, but I do.
Yeah.
And so I kind of focus on how do I help people make the most out of their careers and build the future for themselves in this healthcare space, because I find it a fascinating category.
So, what kind of companies are we talking about here? I think people hear healthcare. I know when I did when I first got recruited into it, I thought healthcare. I don't want to be in a hospital, but it's much broader than that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. That's where many people gravitate to, is they think of the local hospital, or they might think of the big national brands in healthcare, um, hospital side, the delivery side, as we call
Yeah,
it, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, places like that.
yeah,
Um, but they're just a fraction of what really happens in healthcare. Uh, the way that I like to help people understand is, if you think of it as that hospital is like a hotel. It's kind of the hotel business. People check in, people check out, and inside that uh, hotel, you've got a lot of different services that go
yeah,
on. You have environmental services, so you have people, you know, maintaining the rooms and keeping things clean. There's a whole industry that serves those people, from laundry to cleaning equipment, that all have very specialized applications. And so there's an entire industry just around that. And then you think about, well, what are all of the materials that are used inside of that hospital? And they range from, big multi-million dollar imaging systems like MRI systems or
oh yeah,
CAT scans, to hospital beds. It's a giant industry
oh
here in
yeah,
the US. To the devices that are used in the operating rooms or the endoscopy suites, for example. There's an entire industry where you and I work together just in the medical device side. Um, and then think about all of the uh, applications and networking systems that help this business run. You've got the electronic medical records, or EHR, health record companies, all the different apps that operate within the hospital. There's now a whole industry around location systems, being able to track equipment and people within hospitals. So just if you think just in the hospital side, there's that whole ecosystem that is built up around making sure that business runs really, really smoothly. Then you can think outside: lab services. Some of the big lab companies that are drawing blood or doing lab testing. You have specialized lab testing, all of that space. Pharmaceuticals, we didn't, I mentioned I started my career there, but that industry is, to me, an absolutely fascinating one. Think about just the fact that, here in the time of COVID, we were able to, identify the problem, develop a vaccine, bring it to market as quickly as has been done. And the whole biotech space just continues to explode. Um, there's also the distributors that bring all of these products from the
sure,
manufacturers into the end use point. That is another very, very large business. There's marketing research, an area near
yeah.
and dear to my heart, where people need to be able to talk to clinicians and need to be able to hear the voice of the patient or the voice of the nurse or pharmacist. So there's a whole market research industry specifically focused on healthcare, because the language is different. The techniques that you use to uncover unmet needs are different. There is the consulting side of the business around healthcare that ranges the full gamut of everything from strategy to how to improve the patient experience. There are consultants
Right.
that do all of that great work. Then think about design firms. There
Right.
are design firms that help hospitals design their lobbies. How does a patient flow through the system? Design firms that do advertising and creative work. Design firms that do industrial design work, like what's the shape of the right shape of the handle for a surgical instrument, all the way down to packaging. How should I package my product that's going into a healthcare environment? It just
So in
keeps
other words,
going and going and going.
yeah, a lot
Um,
of jobs, a lot of
a lot of
jobs, and many of those are marketing and sales. Not all of them, of course. Here's a question from Sinisri, and he says, I'm a research scholar working with Teva Pharmaceutical, great company, for the last 3 years, and now I'm studying the MBA in marketing. Is there any, what's he say here, any scope to change the job profile from research to marketing? So, what's what's your take on that, Doug?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. And number one, I think the MBA is a great way to make that transition from technical side to business side, and to get into those commercial opportunities. The this is uh, not trying to get you to switch your program, but you are precisely the type of student that I targeted when I built a new program at Northern Kentucky
Yeah,
University.
tell us about that.
Um, yeah. So um, as a marketing leader, when I was hiring people to come in and work in my marketing organizations, obviously I looked for people that had the mental aptitude to be able to understand the technical complexities that you deal with in the healthcare space. So you've got to, you're all, everybody out there has that basic intelligence, but there's that extra drive of wanting to be in healthcare because you enjoy serving people, or you enjoy, you really feel connected to that win when patients get better benefits. But what I would find is I could find good marketers, I could find smart people, but it would take me a long time to get them to understand all the nuances in healthcare. You have to learn
Yeah.
the language. It is a little bit
Yep.
different, right? Just understanding the terminology. Then you have to understand the role of the FDA and all of the different facets of how the FDA and their governance changes what you can
Sure.
and can't do. Then you have to understand the importance of what I call evidence generation. In order to make claims around a healthcare product, you have to have data to back that up. And in my areas where I focus, surgery and endoscopy in particular, this meant actually doing clinical trials and getting studies that I would back up the claims that I wanted to make. That not everybody understands that process and how to do that. And the reason that's important is because it ties into reimbursement. If your technology isn't getting reimbursed, or the procedure that you want to do isn't well reimbursed, it creates a real challenge on your pricing, which is an important P
Yeah.
for your marketing mix. So I would hire these marketers, and then it would take me 3 to 5 years to get them trained up to the point where they could then go run a project completely without me needing to be really involved. So when I retired from corporate life, I went to Northern Kentucky University and convinced them to let me build a program that is an MBA stack. So it's a series of courses that an MBA student can take, specifically focused on healthcare commercialization for career changers like our poster here. The engineer or the scientist who wants to move either further up in their career or wants to move into the commercial side of the organization. Um, and so I think that my recommendation to people, if you can't take my courses and you're somewhere else, absolutely take a course in marketing, uh, so that you understand the 4 Ps and the claim generation process. It's the same. Claims are the same whether you're in consumer packaged goods or healthcare. Just the process of evidence generation is a little bit different. Um, Take a course in new product development, because I think it's important to understand how that process works. The way you get voice of the customer early on, and you
Yeah.
feed that into your design inputs, um, and get as many strategy courses as you possibly can, so you can understand and you get challenged on how to think through different issues on a strategic level. Um, Absolutely can be done, and I think those are the courses to take.
Here's a participant today, uh, Dr. Shimo Henry. And hello, doctor. Thanks for joining us today. Take a guy like Shimo here, who is a clinician, uh, and he's thinking about jumping over to the commercial side of things. What's that look like for somebody in marketing and sales, the commercial side of business, not just in a hospital, obviously, but What are those
Mhm.
opportunities for him in that landscape?
Yeah, that's a great question because there are so many different avenues that the clinician can pursue. And this is actually another thing that I speak with clinicians about quite a bit is if if you are a physician or any other pharmacist or any other role in the healthcare community, if if you have your own practice, you are by default a marketer, right? You have to go build
Sure.
your practice. And that means that you need to understand the basics of marketing in order to do that effectively. Um, and so that's another audience that I built these courses for, is for the clinician that either wants to run their own business effectively, or they're part of a hospital administration, or they see that in their future. How can I
Sure.
bring those business skills into my practice? So I think that it's a perfect fit. On the industry side, there are a lot of opportunities for clinicians to play a role, either in front end product development, where they
Sure.
are serving that role in the marketer, or as well as on the strategy side, determining which procedures are the right ones to go after, um, quality, regulatory roles, as well as evidence generation. There are a number of opportunities out there, and I see a lot of clinicians that want to ultimately have that experience.
I have too. I've seen doctors go from the emergency room practicing emergency medicine to marketing in an industry and then back into healthcare administration. Here's a question that I see a lot with my students at the university. Why do recruiters in pharma or biotech ask for 3 years of sales experience in those industries and never call for interviews? Sounds like you're having a little frustration. What do we need to say on the resume to get the attention of a recruiter? He's writing us
Hmm.
from
Yeah,
Vancouver. Thank you for joining us.
yeah, great question. Um, you know, I'll tell you. Let's start with why do they ask that? Well, um, they're asking that because that sales experience really is critical, and I can't understate it, or I can't overstate it, I guess. Um, the the ability to listen is documented by being a successful salesperson. So
Yep.
why is the ability to listen so important? Well, the ability to listen is important because only when you're listening can you really hear what the customer is trying to tell you, um, what their needs are, whether that is, either hey, I've got a problem that I need to solve, or I have a business challenge that I need to fix. That gets that skill gets honed, and you get sharpened in that sales role. And that's why I suggest to a lot of people, if you get a chance to start there, please do. Now, when pharma companies say, "Hey, we want you to have that 3 to 5 years of selling experience," the reason they're saying that is, unfortunately, quite honestly, many companies have kind of scaled back on their training, and so they're looking for people to come in who already have the basics of sales under their belt, and they don't have to start from scratch. So if you're in that situation, what can you do? I would look for any type of experience that you've had in the past where you've had to sell, and you could be selling yourself. Um, and I would look at situations where perhaps you were in an organization, and that organization needed to go out and either recruit other members or find volunteers. Um, when you're doing that, you're selling. You are telling people, here's the benefit for you if you participate in this activity with us. Why won't you do it? And then you listen to what their excuses are for why they won't help you go clean up the park on Saturday, right? And then you create an alternative solution for them. Well, okay, I understand you're busy on Saturday. Could you come help me on Sunday? So what I coach and counsel people is, look for all of the things that you've done in the past, where you were selling. selling yourself, selling an idea, selling a
Yeah.
concept, or perhaps selling a product, and start there. If you don't have any, go look for something where you can go build some of that sales experience. Um, there are lots of opportunities out there, and they might not sound glamorous, but it's a great way to start.
And I've seen this too with people like coach and counsel in this area. And what I would tell Srikanth, again, thank you for your question, is that companies change back and forth where they will look for people with sales experience and then they're going to teach you the clinical knowledge. Then they'll flip and say, no, we want clinical people and we'll teach you how to sell. But there are also jobs out there like territory assistants or entry level positions where they will groom you from the ground up. Things have changed recently. There's also, as Doug mentioned, some cutbacks in training programs. But the field is so large. In fact, Doug, can you just talk a little bit about the kinds of jobs in marketing? Let's talk marketing first, and then sales second. What are the kinds of jobs that you look for in marketing in healthcare?
Yeah, it is a very, very long list. We could talk for a
Yeah,
couple hours. The I think if I were to break it into a couple different categories, let's start on the supplier side, and I think of that as sort of the medical device companies, the pharma
okay,
companies, the services companies that are supplying things into the healthcare space. There's upstream marketing where you are, um, you're getting that fuzzy front end work about new products and new services, and there's marketing needs that have to happen there. Going out, looking at spaces, categorizing them, crystallizing ideas that can be fed into new products. Then there is the downstream marketing where you're taking a product that is in the marketplace and you are, managing the four P's,
managing it.
um, and serving as sort of that brand manager. Um, then there are specialists specifically on pricing. So there are marketers that
Sure.
are really focused on the pricing P. They understand the reimbursement side. There are a lot of great quantitative tools out there now to help build pricing as well, but you have people that focus there. Then you have all of the work that goes in around the, what I call sort of the commercial side of marketing, everything from, messaging, um, conventions, physician training, Salesforce support. Um, it's a wide range. And then there's also the global aspect that you put on this because each of our healthcare systems are different. Our healthcare system is radically different from the UK, which is radically different from Germany's, and so
Sure.
you need to have people that understand the global aspects. So on that supplier side, wide range. In the hospital side, same situation. I have, if in a hospital side or the provider side, I think about it as, well, who are my different audiences? I have a wide range of audiences. I have my patients, right? So I might be advertising directly to pregnant mothers if I've got a great maternity and natal care system. Um, but then I'm also advertising to the employers in the area because many employers are self-insured, larger employers are self-insured, and they actually can direct their patients. So that's another channel that I advertise to and communicate to are the employers. And then I'm also advertising and communicating to my referral base. I'm trying to get the primary care physicians in my area to refer patients
Yeah.
to my facility for care. Um, and then there's the insurance side. I've got to be able to communicate to my insurers as well. So it runs the gambit. I think that it's often underestimated how many marketing roles there are in healthcare when you think about all of the different players that are in here. I mean, just one we haven't even talked about here: contract research organizations, right? The
Yeah.
organizations that go out and do clinical studies. Well, they have marketing needs. They have to
Sure they do.
market themselves to the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, but they also have to market to investigational sites, could be universities or could just be a group of clinicians that do studies. They have a lot of work to do from a marketing perspective as well. Um, big opportunities.
What is the different job profile in marketing and specifically API or generic pharmaceutical companies?
Yes. So the difference in that side of the business is that the what I've seen is that the marketers in that space are just fantastic at understanding the nuances of contracting and pricing.
Yeah.
It still takes the same level of creativity of being able to think about, okay, if I've got a generic product, which technically says, right, it's identical or similar to another brand that is already out there. Um, well, then I've got to find something else about my 4P mix that makes me stand out. And what I find there is it's either through the distribution side, which is the contracting component, or the pricing side. And those two are really closely linked. And so the professionals I've interfaced with there they've just got another gear that they can turn on
Yeah.
about understanding contracting and pricing and finding creative ways to I don't even want to talk about all the different levers that they can pull because they're so much smarter at it than I. But they understand how to get those two, distribution and pricing component of the P's, to work together to really make a difference.
There's a familiar name, John Hart. Hey, John, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, John. Yeah.
One of our old colleagues from Johnson and Johnson. Doug, let's wrap up with the final question. You've had a lot of fun in your career. Why is healthcare such an attractive and great place to work? Besides the fact that there are so many jobs in a broad industry, what are the advantages of working in healthcare?
Yeah, I this is personal for me, and it is why, in part, I chose the companies that I worked with and worked for. I looked for did their motivations mesh with mine, right? That's how I found I was happiest, was when my personal interest and those of the company aligned. The reason that I'm in healthcare is because I'm a healthcare consumer. My mother is a healthcare consumer. My
Yeah.
sister is a healthcare consumer. My wife and my daughters. And I wanted to make sure that I was working in an industry where I could help make a difference. It really grabbed me to be able to design a product or work with engineers, smart engineers who would design a product, but to give them the inputs that actually
Yeah.
would lead to a change in a patient's life. That was very meaningful to me. Um, and so that was my number one motivation. It's what really got me excited. What kept me in it is the intellectual stimulation. Um, it is changing every day. I read today about Johnson and Johnson's new personalized cancer treatment. That just fascinating that the FDA just cleared this new product. That when I think about where we're going to be in a few years of being able to modify pharmaceutical and biotech treatments specifically
Yeah.
to a person's genome, um, I love that. And so I just think the mental stimulation is great. It's complex. I enjoy that. I
Yep.
enjoy the puzzle component of trying to bring everything together.
Yep.
Um, and I think the other piece that I really love about it are the other people that work in the industry. They
Sure.
tend to also have similar motivations, right? They're here because they want to
Yeah.
help people, right? You're working with doctors who want to help people. And I just love being around other people that have similar motivations and goals to mine. And I just think the healthcare industry is full of the best people I've ever known.
So I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your courses here on LinkedIn Learning, and it goes with this question. I'll paraphrase it because it's kind of long. It says, "What skills or education would I need to be able to transition to a marketing role as a brand manager?" Thank you for this question. Here's the quick answer to that. I think you start to look at the resources here on LinkedIn. LinkedIn Learning is by far the best resource you can find for immediate highly produced, high quality content. For example, Doug, tell us about the courses you offer here on LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah, yeah. So I have two courses. One is international marketing. So it is focused on how do you take the basic concepts of marketing and apply them on an international scale. And there are some pretty basic, easy to understand tools. You just need to get exposed to them
Yeah.
that help um, apply marketing concepts around the world. And the second is on segmentation.
Okay.
And this concepts of segmentation are really about how do I break groups, these customers, um, into discrete segments that have similar behaviors. And that's important because specifically in healthcare, because right, I've talked about this big healthcare space, but there are a lot of different segments in the healthcare space. And when you think about customer segmentation, how do I understand the difference between the early adopting uh, clinician who's going to use a product as soon as it's available versus the laggard? And what has to be different about my messaging from Dr. A to Dr. B? So those are the courses that I offer on LinkedIn Learning, Drew.
Good. So check out Doug's courses. And Doug, how can people learn more about the program at NKU? Tell us where they should go to find out about this very unique and exciting program.
Yeah, thanks. So if you go to NKU, which is Northern Kentucky University
Mm-hmm.
.edu,
Mm-hmm.
that's our landing page. And in there, if you look and search for healthcare commercialization, we have two different ways that people can expand their learning here. One is as part of an MBA stack. So if you are an MBA student, NKU has a fully online MBA, but you can take a stack, which is a set of 4 courses that gives you a concentration in healthcare commercialization. Uh, the other route, if an MBA isn't the route that someone wants to go, we have a graduate certificate. So it's an 18 credit hour program where you get exposure to all the marketing components that I've discussed, as well as healthcare quality and healthcare economics. And that's an 18 credit hour program. People can finish it in as quick as a year if they'd like. Um, and I'm always looking to expand those offerings and add new courses. So would love feedback if people want to learn more.
Great. Doug, thanks so much for joining us today here on Office Hours, LinkedIn Learning. And I'm going to transition here and close the program. Thank you. Sorry about the little bit of technical problems we had at the start. But I want to remind you a couple things. If you would, uh, check out my podcast, follow me on LinkedIn. And next week, we're going to get into the more aspects about marketing. I want to talk to you about writing a marketing plan that really works and not just a plan that you put it somewhere in your drawer. So that is it. We'll see you next week, Tuesday at 11 a.m. here on Office Hours.